Yes, people try to justify their caring of things because it's rooted in functionality or utility, but I think we cannot deny that there is some psychological need being met by having some of these things with us because they give a sense of comfort or peace of mind or preparedness, right?
I have plenty of patience for people who don't see value in the stuff, and that's totally fine. I also don't feel any need to like try and explain to them because it's like self-explanatory.
You get it when you get it.
Yeah, I've been nicknamed the clack dealer from some of my
That's good.
customers.
Like
That's
the
good.
sound, right? Like the sonics
Right,
and
the
haptics.
sound, and it's like it's.
You have a whole
And-
world of keyboard enthusiasts who are just nodding along to what you're talking about.
Dude, yeah.
We're joined by Matt Hiebert from aroundsquare. He's an EDC enthusiast and a maker at heart, and his brand aroundsquare makes high-quality, well-designed gear that you might mistake for being just fidget toys. But tune in and you'll learn about how much depth and cultural, historical significance these items really have and how they can help people feel more relaxed, find focus, achieve a sense of mastery, and even help combat addictions. Matt also shares his perspective on EDC from the lens of a maker as we nerd out about different materials and design philosophies for both what he calls manipulatives and core EDC tools alike. I found today's discussion super interesting, and if you have any interest in what people carry in general, there's a lot you can learn from this episode. So let's jump into it. What's up, everyone? Welcome to CARRIEDAWAY, the weekly podcast where we nerd out about all things EDC gear and maybe try to teach you a thing or two while we're at it. I'm Bernard, the founder of everydaycarry.com, and I'm joined by our editor, Mikey.
What's up?
Today, we're talking EDC gear with Matthew Hiebert from aroundsquare. He's an EDC toolmaker and toy creator whose background in education and social development and decades of worldly experience give him a unique perspective in making products with depth, intentionality, and a whole lot of fun. Matt, welcome to CARRIEDAWAY.
Thanks so much.
So I'm really excited to have you here. There's a long. It all started from our side where we were trying to put together an article, and then it kind of led me down a rabbit hole of looking for a specific type of products, and then I ended up on your website, aroundsquare. So, do you want to give us like a short introduction of yourself and your website and all the products that you make?
I doubt I can give you a short one.
I can imagine.
But yeah, I mean, I grew up making stuff by hand, like just lots of arts and crafts and whatever. And I had a 20-year detour into the field of education and international development. Did lots of like project work around the world. But I always had this like interest in skill toys in particular. Like I grew up playing with yo-yos and like juggling equipment and stuff. And I always found that stuff like really like therapeutic and fun and just like different kind of entertainment. Of course, like I played video games and whatnot too, but but yeah, then like I just kind of always had this side. I mean, nowadays you'd call it a side hustle in the. But I was like doing it in the 2000s, right? And just like designing stuff and had no intention of doing business. I licensed out a couple of designs to other companies that sold them, and like some of them won awards and whatever. And I knew I had some like quality ideas, but it was around 2015 when I first encountered Begleri. That's these guys right here. And that's when I like kind of started to get more serious about it. Like I was just like mucking around with homemade stuff on like posting stuff on Instagram, and the response was like really like way bigger than anything else I had been posting. And so I was mucking around a little bit more. And at the time I was actually living in China, and I thought like I'm already designing stuff, and I may as well just like get a batch of these things made. And the first batch I made I actually just gave away to people that were showing interest in my stuff. I like legitimately didn't plan on doing business, but then just started to pick up, and I was like, well, you know what, let's like beef up my website a little bit and start taking this a little bit more seriously. By like 2018, it was like more work than I could handle, and I was like looking for help, and I was like trying hard to give away my last few like clients that were still hanging on. And 2020 is when it like we really flipped the switch. My wife actually started to get like more actively involved, and she like saw the need and recruited a few more people to help me. And so now we're up to like a team of 8, and I've got like 1,500 SKUs in our product catalog, and it's like everything's designed by me. And and like thoroughly tested. But yeah, that's like, I guess that's as quick as I kind of can condense it for
Yeah,
you.
when I was doing research for this podcast, I was starting to dig down into like old Canadian articles about you, and it's like your background goes like really deep into like the education sector. I was actually I even pulled up you are a PhD holder, aren't you?
I am, yeah, got a PhD in education, which I got around about the same time I stopped consulting.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
obviously there's like a connection between those things if you think about like creative play and like the educational value of that and so on. I don't, the area of education that I was interested in is like kind of more connected. I was interested in what's called the hidden curriculum, which is kind of the like tacit lessons that we learn by being like schooled, as opposed to like the explicit content of the lessons. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff in there around like the types of materials that things are made of, and the way that like the geometry and the forms affect the way that you interact with them, and that sort of thing. So 2 years from now, when you want to get like super geeky, then we can go down that rabbit hole.
yeah,
Okay.
that
Yeah, and just to bring it back a little bit,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
some of the context, Mikey, you were talking about like you're doing research for an
mm.
article, right? At the time, back in like 2020. What was that article you were doing research for that helped
Yeah,
you
that's
find
right.
Around
We
Square?
were doing an article about fidget toys, which I know you're in our conversations, Matt. You don't really like that term, and that got me really interested, and
Yeah,
that led me down to
Yeah.
to these conversations with you. We were doing
yeah.
research on the product for fidget toys. I came across your website, and at the same time, I was also looking for stuff for myself, specifically this one. I was looking for titanium jewelry, and they're actually not that
Mm.
common. And then I ended up on that convergence of doing our article about fidget toys, which ended up really like kind of blowing up, and finding your website, and then finding out that hey, this guy is making materials out of like really familiar EDC materials, so he must know something about the space. And then yeah, turns out in further, we can talk about it later, but further in the research, turns out that you are very well versed in like the EDC in the EDC community. So we can start talking about that. I guess one first question is, how do you feel about where you ended up now? Like with your current background, does it feel like this is the right space for you? Like the products that you're creating, does it further your personal goals?
Totally. Earlier in my life, I had this itch to do like education and international development, and I got a chance to scratch that. And I honestly couldn't be happier doing what I'm doing right now. It's like total passion. It doesn't feel like a job, even though I take it like I take it really seriously,
Yeah.
right? But it's totally like just following my passion. And uh, honestly, like what brought me in and got me hooked on like doing this like increasingly full time and then like full time, it was the community. Like it wasn't about like selling a few sets of Budleri and making a couple of bucks. Like I had a great career. Like, and I just finished my PhD, whatever. Like
Mm.
I was fine. I was good. And I was enjoying what I was doing, but the community really got me hooked. Like I got was suddenly connecting with people all over the place that have like passion for similar kind of things, and like these conversations about like all of the stuff. Like I was in my own little weird niche world of one before that, like
Yeah.
loving these things and not knowing anybody else that played them or like into the materials. And I just like started connecting with people, like just individuals. And then now it's like it's at the point where there's a full on community. And I get so many emails from people who have like benefited from these products. Just like it's so rewarding, and it tells me like keep doing what you're doing,
Yeah,
because it's like
totally.
it's something unique. There's not, as you mentioned, like there's not a lot of people doing anything even like remotely similar to what we're doing. And I'm just like trying to like advance the project, and I keep getting the kind of feedback that tells me I'm going in the right direction. So I'm like full speed.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
really amazing. It kind of reminds me, like you're saying, like it came out of passion. You felt like there was nobody really else that you could talk to about this as you were making it. And then people
Yeah.
started to find you and that community sort of built.
Yeah.
It reminds me of how like I started EDC. Mikey found me through my blog. And then now, we're great friends. We worked together for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And then we've also built a community for ourselves. So I'm actually curious, like in this community that you're building,
Yeah.
were they mainly like people interested in these skill toys or the EDC world, or was there a crossover of both, or how did that pan out?
It's it's really been both. so there's a lot of like people coming across from EDC who have never like played with a thing in their life, and like, and kind of like shy away from the idea of like a skill toy or even the term play, right? Let alone fidget, like,
Sure, yeah.
right? But the fact that I was like doing these things from those like familiar EDC materials and taking them seriously and treating them seriously, not like a plaything for kids, right? That
Right.
kind of gives that like permission structure or whatever, like okay, this is like a legit thing, and then you see some of the people playing it and they're like, wow, that's badass. And like Buglary has like a lot in common with flipping
Oh, I
the
was going to go
balisong
into that.
butterfly knife,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I
So
have a trainer here, so
yeah, man. So back in like the early days when I first started posting, the balisong community was like a huge factor in legitimizing what I was doing. Like we had tons of support. Like a couple of the guys that I first sponsored as players were like OG, like super legit, tons of cred balisong flippers, and that was a huge like blessing for our business ultimately. Although like at the time I was just like, that's rad. This kid like
yeah, yeah.
can like has this like transferable set of skills and is kicking ass with. It's okay to swear, right?
Of course, I don't, but you can. Yeah.
Okay. um, yeah, so that was like a big factor, I think, in like kind of like making it okay to like play with these things for a lot of people who might have otherwise, like if I had been doing like a bunch of videos of me like juggling on a unicycle and posting the same Buglary videos, I think it wouldn't have had the same kind of adoption,
Right, yeah.
right? But yeah, at the same time, there were also people who were into like yo-yos and other kind of skill toys who saw Buglary and were like, oh, that's a thing that, or actually kendama. Do you know kendama? It's this
Yeah.
Japanese skill toy. Yeah.
Kendama's
Yeah,
Japanese,
the
like
thing.
lands on the
Yeah.
cup
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So kendama was really taking off, actually kind of took off way before Buglary, but a lot of the kendama players that were really good found Buglary and were like, suddenly there's this thing, because kendama is like a kind of a big thing. You
It's
can't
pretty
really put it
big.
in the
Yeah.
pocket, and you need space to play it. It's a little bit loud, right? So the kendama guys like found it and were like, this is a thing that fits in my pocket and like really fits into my life in places where kendama doesn't necessarily. Same thing with yo-yoing. Like you kind of need to stand up and you're involving both hands. Whereas Buglary, like you can be like sitting on the bus or whatever, just flipping the
Right.
Buglary around and it's kind of more discreet like that.
And
So yeah,
especially
it was
more
like
discreet
both.
compared to a ballad song, right?
Yeah, no, and that's
Yeah.
that's that's just it. Like with the ballet song, even if you're flipping a trainer,
Yeah.
people are still kind of looking at you,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
right. And so this is like something where, especially in places where ballet songs aren't legal, you can be flipping a set of Buglary around, and everybody's comfortable with it, right?
I am curious now that
Yeah.
we're talking about contacting part of the EDC community. What was your background going into it from like a product design? How did you start discovering like the materials? How did you start developing the construction of the stuff? I know in my research, I know that your very first prototype of one of your products, which was the knuckle bones, you made that in school, right? It was
Mm,
like a plastic shaft, and then
yeah,
you created rubber ends for it, and that became like the prototype for your one of your popular toys, right? Isn't it?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so knucklebone is probably like, yeah, for sure, it's one of our biggest categories. And yeah, the you almost had it, Mikey. The first one that I made was made from polymer clay.
Polymer clay. There you
And
go.
it was like, I think I was in grade 8 at the time, and I was like, I was a good student, but I was also like a challenging student because I like didn't have a lot of attention, and like, I was, so I was like the guy who'd be standing up in the middle of class doing yo-yo tricks and like not really realizing why I was getting in trouble for it.
Mm.
So like after parent teacher interviews one year, my dad came home and like had a talk with me, and so I did I just got to work designing something that I could play with quietly in my hand, that would like, it had to be something that I could do tricks with, because I didn't want just like stimulation. I wanted something that was like creatively engaging. So that's where the knucklebone came from, just a polymer clay version. And
Yeah.
it was literally like oh man, like decades later, I was digging through some old boxes and came across with the old one. I was making Bulgaria at the time, and I was like, hey, wait a sec, I wonder what like a machined metal one of these would be like. And it was like easy enough to get it prototyped.
Very
Um,
cool.
Yeah.
So just really
So
quickly for people who might not know what the knuckle bone looks like, it's kind of like a little dumbbell, like right,
Or like a
that fits
piano.
in your there you go. It's kind of like a little bone shape or little dumbbell shape that's fits between your fingers, and you can do tricks with it, like roll it between your fingers and stuff like that.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, thanks. It's
Yeah.
so yeah, in terms of product design, Mikey, I had no formal background. I just like, oops, I was like, mildly artistic as a kid, but like I really loved arts and crafts. Like I did when I was in university, I was like sewing all my own clothes, and like I did a lot of woodwork and leather work and stuff. So I
True
just like I
maker.
always liked making stuff, right? And
Yeah.
I've never had like a metal lathe or anything. That the learning about like the metal goods really just came through through my exposure to different materials, through like collecting knives and whatnot. But there was like, yeah, the kind of a design aesthetic that came like, I've always liked like minimalist stuff and like clean geometry, and that's like I definitely have a set of preferences.
Yeah.
A lot of your products, just like Balisong flippers, are grounded in something else originally. Like for example, the
Mm,
Balisong was originally a knife. It's a traditional knife from our part of town, from the Philippines. And then
yeah,
a lot of your other products as well, like the breeze, like the wearables, the rings,
yeah,
all have some history to them.
yeah.
But before that, what do you think is the purpose of like manipulation toys or fidget toys as part of somebody's EDC? Now, since you started crossing over with those guys, what do you think is like knuckle bones, or like are like these MK Ultras that I'm wearing right now, which is the bracelet, the wearables? What do you think
Yeah.
personally is their place in EDC?
That's a good question. I mean, I like you see these types of things in all different cultures around the world, right? And
Hmm.
like long cultural traditions of, people. Here's like a set of komboloi from Greece, right? So, and it's like you go anywhere in the Mediterranean or Middle East, North Africa, you're likely to see people with a set of beads of some sort, flipping them around, and yeah, Baghleri have that origin as well, right? So like in a lot of ways these kinds of things predate definitely the contemporary EDC community, right? Like these
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
like personal accessories that people would have that were like a companion, not necessarily like a piece of jewelry, but like just like something that they would always have on. Like you're leaving the house, you're grabbing your wallet and your keys and your set of whatever. And you know like Middle East, North Africa, Mediterranean, you see a lot of worry beads like that. This here is a set of Chetki, which is like a Russian version. It originated from the rosary, but you can see this one is uh, got some like pretty crazy artwork on it.
Right. Right.
Um, there's this concept in China called Wunwan, which is it's like uh, the characters refer to like play and culture, and
Ooh,
you
Mm.
often there's like a bunch of different variants of it, but the baoding balls, the metal balls that
the one with the
you see
bells
people
inside.
using, like yeah, so that's like under the umbrella of Wunwan. There's a bunch of different things, and that's like one of the examples. But it's this kind of like a skill oriented thing that has some depth to it that is like part of your culture, and you kind of cultivate a connection to that thing. So what's its role in EDC? To each person it's going to be a different thing, and right, for
Yeah.
some people it has no role, it has no place, right? Like people it's it could be like a bit of a divisive topic for some people. Like I know there are some opinions about the like pocket trash and that sort of thing, right? And I'm perfectly comfortable with those people not having my stuff in their pockets. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
um, so yeah, like for me, myself, and for like a lot of people in the community, it's just like I think it has that connection of being like a something of a companion, something that you have with you all the time, and it's like something you grab for when you're a bit bored, or if you're anxious, or when you're just passing the time. And it means different things in different moments.
Hmm.
And for me, like I've got like my different sets of the MK Ultras, which is like it's that's kind of our modern take on the traditional Greek worry beads, right? But I'll take a set of these, and like sometimes it serves the purpose of like I'm like a bit anxious and I don't know what to do with my hands or whatever. So there's like a kind of a social crutch there. Like if you don't know quite what to do with yourself, you find yourself doing something.
Yep.
Or if you're like, you can slide the thing up and you're just like kind of counting beads if you're wanting to chill or like calm down a little
That's
bit.
my move
Uh,
personally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or like if you want like a little bit of like stimulation, like you just like passing the beads, letting them clack down. So like different things for different social contexts, different like moods that you're in, whatever. And personally, I carry a couple of these things usually with me, and some of them are a little bit more kind of ruckus and make a bit more noise. Some of them are like super discreet, and you just have it in your hand, and you're just kind of like folding it over.
Yeah,
So
I find it really interesting because like also personally my exposure to some of these tools is like the monk prayer beads, right?
yeah,
Like a lot of them like similar to the mala beads in some of your products or the MK
yeah,
Ultras or even necklaces.
it's good.
It's I'm not particularly a religious person, but
Yeah,
in using these my own units of the stuff that I have from you, it's become also like I get really anxious a lot, and I do get fidgety with my hands, which is kind of like the how I started getting into all of this stuff, like the knuckle bones and the MK Ultras. Just today, I was
yeah,
outside worrying because I have a trip coming up, and I'm kind of like starting to get anxious about the flight. Just as I'm planning,
mm,
I'm just running the. I was wearing it outside, and I just started just like running it through running it through my fingers, like you were demonstrating,
right.
as I was
Yeah,
writing down like the stuff I needed to do, just to kind of like I said, I'm not a religious person, but it kind of just like grounds me and starts balancing me. And
I've seen even, I think in some of your product reviews on your website, people are saying that your products help them like quit smoking, right? Like they just need something to do with their hands because they've replaced that habit with something maybe
yeah,
healthier or just more aligned with their goals. And I can see, like you're saying, that it's just a companion and something you reach for. And I think there's this aspect in EDC where, yes, people try to justify their caring of things because it's rooted in functionality or utility. But I
yeah,
think we cannot deny that there is some psychological need being met by having some of these things with us because they give a sense of comfort or peace of mind or preparedness, right? Because
yeah,
preparedness doesn't mean just like you have the right tool to accomplish any job, but sometimes it's just like you feel naked without it. And
yeah,
I think it's perfectly valid if for some people they'll feel naked without one of these companions, whether it's a skill toy or like a prayer bead or
or like a
something like that.
watch or like a knife.
Yeah, or
yeah,
like a watch. Like my dad, like he's into watches and stuff too, but he also wears like it's not a full rosary, but it's beads with a cross,
Mm,
okay,
and
very
that's
popular
just
from the
important to
Philippines.
him. Yeah, exactly. He's
yeah,
he's Filipino too, and I think yo-yos are also Filipino. So
hey,
like
yeah, I
a
think
lot
so
of
too.
these
Yeah,
skill toys,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
are Filipino. And
yeah,
speaking of skill toys, I think it's important because there's this stigma around, at least in the EDC community, there's a stigma
mm,
around fidget toys as
yeah,
being, like you said earlier, pocket trash. And I think just those, it's the language that we use, right?
yeah,
So fidget toy, it does not invoke like a sense of utility
mm,
or function there because
yeah,
you're just being anxious and you're just playing with something, right? You're not getting
yeah,
anything done. But then I've seen this like reframed as a focus tool, right?
yeah,
So I think that's really interesting where it
yeah.
can help some people um, just optimize their mental state to do whatever they need to do. And how is that different from a pocket knife letting you do what you need to do, like cut a box or something? I think i think that's valid and legitimate in that use too.
You said it really well, Bernard. Like in terms of utility, like what could be more useful than like managing your internal state and your
Yeah.
your mind, right? So like I have plenty of patience for people who don't see value in the stuff, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I also don't feel any need to like try and explain to them because it's like self-explanatory. Like
You get it when you get it.
yeah, and if you don't get it and you have no place for it, then awesome. Like maybe you're a step ahead. Like who knows?
Right.
But yeah, like I just want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the product reviews. People talking about like quitting smoking and so on. Like when I was talking earlier about like validation from the community, man, I hear from so many people who like, for example, like military veterans who have PTSD,
Mm.
who have like found immense like comfort in our products, and people who are it's so rad to hear like people who are going through like addictions recovery, or they're like they've been sober. Like there's a guy that emailed me last month. He's like, I've been sober for my like a year. I'm about to go through my first sober birthday in like
Oh, that's
however long,
amazing.
and I want to buy myself a new Deadeye coin, and like what do you recommend? And like and you know that sort of thing is so awesome to hear. And there's actually like research around like regulation of our autonomic nervous system, and how like you know everybody's tuned a little bit differently, right? Everybody's like got different levels of like attention and excitedness and whatnot. But for a lot of people, and this is true, I think of a lot of people that have ADD or ADHD, their mind is craving some extra stimulation,
Hmm.
right? Like that's what like people think like they're hyperactive and they take Ritalin and it calms them down. Well, Ritalin is not a depressant. Ritalin is actually a stimulant, and it's a stimulant because it like gives you extra stimulation to like help calm down the autonomic nervous system, right? And so there's this concept of external or like outboarding the autonomic regulation. So basically, like people do it through like you know tapping their feet, clicking their pen, whatever. But it's all serving essentially the same purpose of like giving you that ability to offload some of the work of like calming the system down from your mind to your hands,
Oh,
Mm.
right?
interesting. Yeah.
So you're like rather than like trying to suppress that through just like calm down, Matt, calm down, like you're actually like providing this like direct stimulation, and that's like you know I'm not a counselor or a therapist. I
Yeah, sure.
my but whatever. So your mileage may vary, right? But there's a bunch of like contemporary research about exactly that sort of thing.
And I just realized also when you mentioned one of your anecdotes of like a recovering alcoholic, don't they also get a
Mhm.
coin when they complete their like 12 steps?
Mm.
It's part
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that symbolism and that reminder, that memento of them accomplishing something and achieving that goal. I think that's also transferable to like some of these mementos we carry with us. The whole concept
I think so.
of challenge coins, right? That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like been
Yeah.
adopted by EDC as well. And yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's people that they'll like carry their grandfather's pocket knife, and like
exactly.
it's a constant reminder, like don't let this dude down. He sacrificed a lot for my
Mhm.
family, or whatever, right?
Or like
Right.
like a wedding ring, like the whole concept of a wedding ring. It's
Right?
just a reminder of your vows, right? It's cool that you mentioned like we're starting to get into the realm of like mindfulness and like meditation and like calming oneself down. This is kind of like
Yeah.
something Bernard's kind of interested in as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any mindfulness or meditation practices yourself? And how has that like informed your decision making in creating new products or tweaking them or like, improving them?
The ones that involve my products directly are fairly informal.
Hmm.
So you could call it a mindfulness practice to like you know carry one of these sets around with you and use it when you need it.
Hmm.
Um, I do. I know there's a lot of people that use our product, specifically the MK Ultras or our Mala beads. They use it for breath work,
Hmm.
and they'll have like a certain routine every morning, doing like X number of cycles. And there's a bunch of different approaches to breath work that you know we could talk about, but you know it's a I do some of that stuff when I meditate. I meditate fairly often. I don't actually use my products for it.
Hmm.
I just I just sit,
Yeah.
and that's my meditation practice, is a sitting practice. And I know there's people that use the products for that, and some of them are like very kind of conducive to just kind of chilling out in that way. Biggest thing for me, like mental health wise, I think is exercise. Like I run quite a lot, almost every day,
Hmm.
and do a bunch of other stuff. Like for me, there's no substitute for just like getting the body active, and in terms of like calming my system down. I need that in my life. I think it's no accident that I've ended up in this line of work
Yeah.
and like creating all of these tools. I think there's a need that I feel, and I've got different approaches for it. But yeah, like running is like a huge one, and I when I run, I do the nasal breathing and the whole bit. But
I had just something that kind of came to mind when I look at your products, and especially your emphasis on material selection and
mhm,
how this can potentially relate to mindfulness. So like
mhm.
I've been practicing meditation for a few years, and I'm taking it a little bit more seriously now, and I don't use any products while I'm doing it. But I think there's opportunities to just be more present and aware with your everyday carry gear. And one way to do that is to really feel the sensation of the materials of your gear. And I think this is really interesting in how you show this in your catalog, because you have similar designs or the same designs, but done up in different materials. And you'll describe the difference of these materials and how it translates to, the hand feel, the weight, the balance, all of that stuff. That's very, I think, in line with some principles of mindfulness and awareness and just general presence, where you think about the sensations and the experience of something in your hand. And it's not just like, oh, I can flip this thing, but it's like, how does it feel in motion? How does it, like, what is the temperature, the texture, all of that stuff. And that can just help you think in greater detail and look more closely in that present moment when you're interfacing with something in your hands. And that can apply to our EDC gear. And it doesn't have to be like, around square skill toys. It could be just like your knife or your wallet or flashlight or whatever. There's textures, there's knurlings, there's different weights, there's different materials, hand feel, like all of that. And that's in all EDC gear. And I think that's something you can do for free to like connect more with your everyday carry gear, and maybe even get some sense of mindfulness or presence with the stuff you carry every day.
I was also going to say that that's the kind of thing that the EDC community also kind of nerds out about, right? People get really obsessed about like the little details. Like Bernard's a watch guy. The details are really, really matter. And the material construction and like the design of it, how everything ties in together. You have a greater appreciation of the stuff that you have when they're well built. You like subconsciously you start appreciating if something is well designed or if something is well built. And you can start appreciating a lot more of your gear if you frame it from that point of view, right? And I think that's also what like Bernard has mentioned. I appreciate that you have an entire line of products for the same type of product, but also across like different price points. And you're never framing it like I also saw in like on the site. You describe it that you don't describe it in terms of like price points. You describe it in terms of feel or a different type of weight or a different sensation for how you're when you play with the toys or when you wear the toys, or even like how you differentiate between the sizes of like the MK Ultras, between the 10 millimeter to the 15 millimeter. It feels a bit weightier on the wrist. It has a bit more presence. This is similar language to how watch people talk about like case sizes for their watches, or like that extra 2 millimeters of a deep carry pocket clip makes all the difference for some people, right? Like if it's sticking out of your pocket just a little bit, it's kind of like it's not absolutely perfect. And yeah, I really love the
we're a bunch of nerds, aren't we?
Yeah, we kind of are. That's like the theme of this podcast. Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, I used to be like self-conscious about and like a bit apologetic about being such a nerd, but like I kept getting the feedback from people like, like my product launch videos, I used to try to keep them under 20 minutes, and then it was like creeping up. The latest one I did, I think it was like 37 minutes.
Yeah, I watched it. I watched all of it.
But people are like don't shorten them. And now I'm just like, I'm full on. I'll just like geek out and talk about these like nuances, because like what I realize is that it matters to people, like the little differences in description. Like if you're rolling a knuckle bone for a couple of hours every day, like the smallest difference in the texture or the material or the weight or whatever, you're gonna feel it, right? Like it's your hands just get tuned that much closer to what you're doing. And I think you get your EDC people that are all about copper or all about titanium or whatever, and they may not even be conscious of the reasons for that, right? They might like, maybe they think they just like the look, but they actually really like the feel or something like that.
Exactly.
Yes.
And there are people that would mod their knives to get it just the way they want, to get the action just the way they want. They'll like lubricate their knives, take it apart. That's like very involved, and it builds this connection to your gear that I think goes a little bit beyond just like the pure functionality and performance. And I think that's something to be celebrated. And nerding out, I think it's just like, that's a gift, and if you can find the right people to share that with, that's great. But I will admit, there are a lot of people that probably don't understand what we're talking about right now. And there's still a lot of things that I don't know and want to learn about. So selfishly, I'm going to ask you, because I think you're more knowledgeable. One of the trends that we're seeing in the EDC space is the use of the material Ultem. And I made a video about it because I thought it kind of looked like pee and it just felt like plastic to me. And I don't really get it. But since it's so popular, I feel like there must be something there. And I am okay admitting that maybe it's just me. Maybe I don't see what everyone else sees. So, as you know, a maker who's worked with this material, like, can you school me on what makes Ultem like the new thing right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's trendy, and I wasn't like I wasn't ahead of the curve on this one. Like I try to be pretty up on things, but I was a little bit flat-footed with the Ultim thing. But yeah, like it's been one of our most popular materials for sure. Like we pretty much sell out same weekend with anything that we launch in Ultim. I gotta say, like, it doesn't help that the chemical formula gets abbreviated as PEI, right?
Right.
I don't know
Oh
who
no.
chose that one, but so I mean, I can't speak to the popularity in other gear. Like a knife to me with like Ultem scales or even like an Ultem frame, that seems like an unlikely match to me, and I
Okay.
don't fully understand that. For and then like I know it has like special thermal properties. This is a set of Ultem Chetki that
Oh,
I've
okay, nice.
prototyped it,
Yeah.
and so what I can speak to is in our materials, like aesthetically, it's beautiful, right? And it looks a hell of a lot like amber. Uh,
Yes.
so this there's a natural connection here. I've got a couple sets here. Um, so this is in terms of like connection, amber is one of the materials that was traditionally used for Komboloi and Tespa in like the Mediterranean region,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's like and even like there's even a connection to like polymer plastics because the Fatwan and like some of the like reconstituted amber that they would use, they would basically like mix the shavings of amber resin plastic with sorry, mix the shavings of real like amber
Mm-hmm.
with like polymer resin to like kind of reconstitute it and get new beads out of it, right? So there's like that has a long history to it. And so I feel like there's kind of an authenticity and legitimacy to something that looks like amber made from polymer materials. Okay,
Okay.
so there's that aspect to it. So it's beautiful. It has this kind of like sort of like it's tenuous, but it's like a bit of a historical connection
Yeah.
that I am happy to talk about. But also like what I find in my materials, we have a lot of people who are real um like clack fiends. Like they I've been nicknamed the clack dealer from some of
Okay.
my
That's good.
customers.
Like
Like,
the
That's good.
sound, right? Like the sonics and
right, the
haptics
sound, right, and
clacking.
so
Okay.
you get this sound, and it's like
Hmm.
You have a
it's
you
nice,
have
right?
a whole
And
world of keyboard enthusiasts who just are just nodding along to
Yeah.
oh,
what you're talking about.
dude, yeah, totally, right. So there is like a special feeling with the sound of the Ultim beads. It's
Oh.
I don't know what the actual like hardness properties are, but when you're as familiar as like we in the community are with the different materials, you start to like you can almost pick them out by the sound. So Delrin, for example, has it's a softer material and it has like a really like warm to the touch kind of feel. It's like a warmer, deeper sound, whereas the clack that you get with the Ultim, it's like a higher pitched, like crisper sound, and some people totally love that. They're like super hooked on it, right? So that's just like it's another like really geeky little nuance
Yeah, that is
of the
super
things,
interesting.
but I think that definitely explains some of the appeal of Ultim for at least for the worry beads. And I noticed it a lot when I'm playing with this set of check key. Like the clack is
Mhm.
really different than this one here. This one's made of ebony. I don't know if you'll be able to hear the difference, but it's a very different sound. This one's like much higher pitched,
Mm.
and it has a different feel. Like it's like it's crisper in the hand, and it's yeah.
That leads me to my next question. I'm really interested now because, like, from the perspective of a tool maker and an EDC maker, and also somebody like in the really deep end of material construction and like material acquisition to make all of your stuff. Now that you have access to like zirconium and
Mm.
is it mercury and Damascus, all of
Oh
those
yeah, Mokutai,
Mokutai, yeah, all
Zirkutai,
of those.
these beauties, right?
For people who are not familiar, these are materials that are combinations of other exotic materials, right?
Mm.
It's titanium plus other materials to create like a Damascus pattern, which creates Damascus, right? That's how those
Yeah,
go. So
yeah.
from that kind of perspective, and the fact that you've made tools and toys from all of these materials, what is your personal favorite, and what do you think about the whole genre of like exotics as a whole?
For me personally, I'm like pretty much titanium
Mm,
preference
same,
through and through.
same.
Yeah.
Same.
It would be easy for me to like fully deck myself out with everything zircutai, and I love the zircutai. Like it's freaking gorgeous, and I like this one here. So yeah, the zircutai, it's like layers of different grades of titanium
Ah,
with zirconium, and then they polish it, etch it, torch it, and it's like it comes out with these like grain patterns, which is just beautiful, right? Uh, I feel like for me personally, like I'm the type of guy like my favorite color is gray. I like everything minimalist. Like
mm,
I'm not one for too much bling, and titanium is like it's like a great material. It's like it's got all the right properties. It's strong. It's light. It's like got good hardness, and for the stuff I design, it's no real secret in the community. Like a lot of my designs are like optimized for titanium. So
Yeah.
if I'm like
mm.
looking at the thickness of something, I'll decide the thickness based on how much this is going to weigh when it's made out of titanium,
Ah,
right?
interesting.
So people who want like a lighter version, they'll go for aluminum, and people who want a heavier version, they'll go for stainless steel, copper, brass. But like I pretty much optimize things for titanium for the most part. Um, yeah, I do have to say I don't think I have one right here with me, but I do like a little accent sometimes of like mokutai or zirkutai. So sometimes on my sets I'll make the little locking bead here. I'll put like a zirkutai or a mokutai bead on that just as like
Yeah.
a little thing extra, right?
That's a nice
But
callback as well to some exotic knife makers and flashlight makers. Their clip is
mm,
flamed titanium, or it's the perfect accent to like an all gray tool. And then you or like
yeah.
Mm.
Tactile Turn also does this with their clips and their components. It's just like that perfect little accent, like if you know if you know you know, like it's just a small
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
But like I was
Yeah.
telling like earlier with Bernard and watches, like the details matter, right? All the
Yeah.
small details make you appreciate stuff more.
Oh man, yeah, and we like to customize our things in the ways that we can, right? And so it's actually really cool now that I've been doing this for enough years. Like I'll see people who have like their their own collection of beads, and I'll sell something, and they'll like take it apart, and they'll like change up like they might put brass here, or like one brass, one copper, or something like that.
Mm,
Or we get sets and you can put different accents on them, and so it's nice to see people personalizing and customizing stuff in their own way. And yeah, I love that it's gotten to the point where that's possible.
yep. Actually, Gabe, our producer, was curious. What's your most best-selling product, or what's the most popular products that you sell? Is it mostly titanium across all of the products, or is it a specific type of product? What's the most popular stuff?
Yeah, I mean, if I look at our sales volume, it's titanium for sure, which is kind of not intuitive because it's one of the more expensive, like
Mm,
apart from exotics. I lost Bernard's question there. Exotics in general, I do love them, and there's people that love them, so I got to make them, right?
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, titanium is the definitely the most popular material. If I had everything in the catalog available in Ultem, who knows? Like 2024 might be the Ultem year, but I don't.
Yeah.
Titanium is one, like every product that we have it in titanium. So, but it does definitely outsell um, the other standard materials like stainless steel and aluminum by like honestly by like 3 to 1.
wow.
Wow. Do you have any
Yeah,
insight like who is buying titanium? Is it like the EDC crowd or like the skill toy crowd or
both.
just both? Wow. Okay,
Both, yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the people that are coming just from skill toys, they might start out with a $20 set of Bugleri that has like Delrin and stainless steel, and then like play with it for a couple months and then come back for the titanium version because they want that. But, yeah.
Yeah, so I tried to get into some skill stuff. I have like this Squid Industries trainer
Yeah.
here. I think this is all aluminum. I know that they make like titanium stuff, but even this was pretty expensive. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's surprising that like something like titanium would sell the most, because I think maybe those people are just like really good at that toy, because I couldn't like bring myself to invest in a really expensive trainer until I got good. I can only do like 2 tricks on this, and I'm thinking about it now, and I've had different forms of I guess skill toys or skill items in my everyday carry, like oh my gosh, in college, which is like 10 years ago or something, I would carry a deck of playing cards, and I would have like an EDC. It
Clip.
was like a stainless steel formed clip that
Mm.
clips the deck together so
Oh
that
yeah,
the
to keep them
cards,
straight.
keep them straight, so you can do
Yeah.
cardistry flourishes,
Yeah.
right? So, and I just wanted to touch on just this distinction between something like a fidget toy, which might get some stigma associated with it, especially when you think about what got popular in around 2020 with like teenagers. It's just like that try spinner thing, right?
Yeah.
There's no real skill involved in spinning
Yeah.
a fidget spinner, right? It
Right.
does maybe give you the simulation that you're talking about, but it seems like your best-selling tools and the tools you make and the skill toys you make have this aspect of skill expression. And I think the aspect of
that's
skill
good.
expression makes
Yeah.
it just more legitimate and adds so much depth to what that thing can do for you in your everyday carry, because I
Yeah.
think everybody has some innate desire to be skilled at something, right? Nobody likes sucking at everything they do. They're right. Like, why are we doing anything? So I think this level of skill expression is something really interesting, and something that maybe people who don't really understand the world of, you know, skill toys, focus tools, and like this kind of side of EDC, this little pocket, maybe
Yeah.
that's something that can bring them in. Because, if you're coming from this idea of preparedness and functionality and performance, that all
Yeah.
kind of does in some way involve a level of skill, right? You wouldn't invest in performance and functionality if you didn't want to do something better, if you didn't want to do something well. And that's kind of like it ties into, I think, this idea of skill. So skill expression is really cool. And if I were to try something out from your catalog, it might be the knuckle bones, just because
My
I'm a
favorite.
rock climber.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a rock climber, and I need like finger strength and dexterity, and that kind of stuff will help with circulation and like mobility of my fingers. Just doing that kind of rolling. So pretty cool. In the past, I would just have like my machined EDC pen and just like roll that between my fingers. But I think that has like this level of focus and skill expression that's missing in just, kind of mindlessly rolling a pen through my fingers.
Yeah, you've said a bunch there that I would love to respond to. Like,
Sure.
definitely major distinction between something like a fidget spinner versus this kind of thing, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
I honestly, like, I could have made a lot of money in 2020 like with
Yeah.
selling those things, but it really just never interested me. Like, aesthetically, I can actually appreciate like some of the brands out there make beautiful like pieces of art that are like spinners. Like, there's still
Yeah.
companies out there doing them, and it's like awesome.
And
Like,
I
it's
still want
next
them,
level.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like, it just never interested me. Like, I bought a couple to check them out, and I like played it once, and I like, because it didn't have the depth to it that
Yeah.
I needed, right? I wanted something more where I could go somewhere with it. Like, it wasn't giving me enough. I need that kind of open platform. But yeah, in terms of like other benefits of the stuff, you mentioned rock climbing. We actually have quite a few rock climbers in the community, and this is like again like a little bit counterintuitive, but we have a ton of strength athletes and martial artists, like combat sports enthusiasts that use our product, including like some like pretty scary guys that use these things like as serious tools to counteract the effect of like if Brazilian jiu-jitsu, they're like grabbing on the gi all the time
Yeah.
and this kind of thing. So you're clenching with a lot of strength all the time, and so it's like opening up the fingers again, maintaining that dexterity, and like, kind of lubricating the joints and stuff.
Exactly.
Some of those guys, like the guys that have been at it a long time, have like pretty like gnarled arthritic fingers. And like one of the guys told me he felt like he got 10 years back on his hands after finding the knuckle bones. So again, like I'm not making like medical claims or anything, but there's got to be something there, and we definitely like have enough people in the community that's kind of convinced me that there's a thing there. But
Yeah, I'll try it out for myself. I'll add like +1 to your data set then.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
This kind of begs a question also for kind of our audience who's discovering you for the first time through this show. What would you recommend to somebody coming like as a beginner to your products? Like with you said you had 1,500 SKUs. What would you recommend to somebody looking to find their first, I guess, focus tool or their first meditation tool? What would you personally recommend to somebody coming in fresh?
Actually, just on the terms there, we touched on a variety of different terms. One of the terms that I don't hear often, but I really like, is one that actually borrow from education, which is the term manipulatives.
Oh, nice.
So,
Okay.
like manipulatives, like as opposed to like a skill toy or like a fidget thing or whatever. It's like something that you manipulate that's kind of a scaffold for other aspects of your life.
Yeah,
And so,
it's more broad.
so all of these have that kind of manipulation aspect to it. And I joke around with digital manipulation, the term. Right.
Yeah, follow me on my digital manipulatives, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, what do I recommend? We actually have like, honestly, it's like asking like, which bike do you want? Like, what's your favorite color?
Right,
Like,
right.
Sure.
it really is like, what I would say, like, look at the catalog and what speaks to you. Like, what thing do you see and you find it intriguing? Because like what you're going to get the most benefit from is the thing that you actually like really love and want to carry. Like, so should you get copper or brass or like pink anodized aluminum? Like, I don't know which one do you like the looks of? It's like that's probably more important than the weight or the thing. So like for people who don't really see themselves wanting to do like learning tricks with something and they just want something really low key, the dead eyes are like more like a worry stone type of thing, and you can do like pretty neat manipulations with them, but it's definitely more low key, and it has that kind of just ergonomic kind of worry stone aspect to it. The knuckle bones are, I'm kind of making a progression here. The knuckle bones are a little bit trickier to learn rolls with. It's still quite accessible, and even if your fingers don't have a lot of that dexterity, like you'll be able after a couple of hours to like get it between your fingers, and then from there it's like you just keep grinding on it until like you start getting a bit flowier. Bagleri is also pretty accessible, but it's like a little bit bigger and a little bit like there's more risk of it flying out of
Yeah,
your hand
it's
and
pretty
dropping
dynamic.
and that sort of thing. Yeah. And then like getting up there, we have the Checky. Some people just like really love the story of Checky. Checky are actually kind of a crazy story. They're like their origins, like they became popular in the like Russian prison system and the like among the Russian mafia, and so that there's this kind of like mystique around them, which some people are drawn to that. So like whatever thing kind of speaks to you, and then we have other stuff that are more like full on skill toys, but some people like the idea of a wearable piece, and so the MK Ultras, yeah, you got it. Like just like yeah, that's it's my non-recommendation, right?
Okay.
It's like
Yeah,
So useful.
just from a personal anecdote as well. Like I said at the start of the show, I was looking for a particular wearable. I wanted titanium beads, and nobody was making them except you. And then I was into other more along the lines of the fidget toy, exotic type of toy. I don't know if you're familiar with Laurier products.
yeah, they're one of the guys that I had in mind when I was talking about spinners. Like I love their aesthetic. Their designs look really cool, right?
Yeah.
Like super high end
I,
stuff.
I fell down that rabbit hole as well. I owned a few of them. And then I discovered I wanted to try the knuckle bones because it kind of appealed to me. I was also kind of starting to learn how to flip as well. So there was that whole skill aspect that I kind of got interested in. And then I realized, hey, you're making a lot of stuff. This is before I discovered the whole catalog, but I discovered that you were making a lot of stuff that was EDC adjacent. That was kind of appealing to me.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like you said,
Yeah.
titanium all day. And then I
Yeah.
got the titanium knuckle bones, and that was it for me. I literally sold all of my other fidget toys and everything, and I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
I'm just all day I'm just waiting for you now to make a Bella song. So
Yeah, dude,
Well,
you and like 1,000 other people.
I'm just waiting for your Bella song, man. Which
I think that's a great segue
yes,
though. Yeah, because like what if so we're talking about skill toys and like maybe people who are listening to this who are more into like the functional gear, maybe they're not fully sold on that part of EDC just yet. Or maybe they're like me and they're they've already reached their skill ceiling and they're quite they're just kind of like fumbling around there. But you have a new product coming out, and this is pretty core EDC. Do you want to talk about this for a bit?
Yeah, sure. Have you got yours?
Yeah, I have mine here.
Sweet. Yeah. So this is the base knife. So this is the first pocket knife that we've done, and it might be the first of many. We'll see. But it's basically like I got into collecting knives quite a few years ago. Like before I was actually making Bigleri, I wanted a decent pocket knife. I've always been the type of person that wanted to have like one good thing rather than 20 things that are trash,
Mm,
right? And so
mhm.
I wanted to get like good pen, good knife, and that sort of thing. And yeah, like I didn't ever have intentions to design my own knife. It wasn't an ambition because it's like it's such a crowded market. There's so many
Yeah.
great makers, and they're like these days it's hard to find a bad knife. Like there are so many great ones out there, right? And it's like a really well served market. But I didn't set out to collect knives. Like I wasn't a didn't see myself as a collector, but I kept buying knives, and eventually I realized like the reason I keep buying them is because I'm not finding the one that I want. Like I keep
Right,
buying
right.
one that I think is like I think this is going to be it. Like after this, I'm not going to need to buy another knife, and then like 2 weeks later, I'm like buying another one, right?
Hmm.
And and then I lay them all out on my desk and I see like okay, there's definitely a type here. Like almost all of them are titanium.
Hmm.
They're almost all of them are like thumb stud or dual thumb stud. Like they have like as clean as you can get with geometry, and we can talk about that. Like a lot of the EDC stuff I find is like very tactical looking, and I like
Right.
there isn't a lot out there that's like just really clean and minimal, right? So as the years went by and I kept collecting knives and I kept getting more and more experience with designing and machining metal products, I started to just like sketch out like by that point it's kind of clear what the feature set was, like what my preferences were, and still like nothing had kind of come along that I felt like checked all of the boxes for me. So I started to design my own. So yeah, that's the origin of this, and um, basically I wanted something small, minimalist. Like I get why a lot of people like to have a bigger knife, but like I've got a couple of the small Sabenzas,
Hmm.
and like even those are bigger than what I need, and I find like on day to day basis, it's like a big ask for me. I've got a lot of nice stuff that I want to carry in my pocket,
Yeah.
and to have like a something even as big as a small Sabenza in my pocket all day, I just found myself, as much as I love those knives, I found myself like taking them out and like leaving them on the desk rather than keeping them in my pocket. And I wanted something small, but like still functional for like the odd jobs that I do around the house and that sort of thing. And so yeah, that's kind of the background on this guy. And I just wanted to make it with like great materials, good fit and finish, and again in the style that I wanted.
and that's
Yeah,
and
nice.
yeah, like you mentioned earlier, it's pretty core EDC. And for audience members who don't know, Sabenza is kind of like for a long
Mm.
time, Chris Reeves Sabenza has been like the gold standard for an EDC knife. Top tier
Yeah.
materials,
Yeah.
titanium handles, and there's a lot of that DNA that clearly Bernard and I were talking about it. It clearly went into this knife as well. Like like you mentioned, the frame lock and the titanium handles and dual thumb studs, and even the use of like tanto as an option, which Chris Reeves also does for their knives. So it's very core EDC. It's very EDC centric. This knife.
Yeah, like I think I had mentioned in an email, Mikey, that in some ways this is kind of like an homage to the Sebenza, because I do love my Sebenzas, and it predated me. They're no longer around, but I think the Chris Reeve had another model. I think it might have been called the Umfan or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a smaller version of the Sebenza, like way back in the day. But like you can't find them anymore, right? And that's another thing that kind of bugged me. Like, there are like makers, smaller shops that are making things that are pretty clean and minimal looking, that like almost check all of the boxes for me. But there's so many things in the knife community that are like unavailable. Like you'll find a great knife that you're like, oh my god, I have to have that thing, and then you'll go through like 10 different websites and it's like not available, not available, not
there's
available.
a wait list or something.
Yeah, and so that was another issue for me, because I'm the type of person that wants to have like a standard thing. I don't want like the one-off super custom like artisanal made thing. Like I want something where I can go back and get another one, or I can get a backup, or I can buy one for a friend. And so that's like another reason that like led me to make my own here.
Bernard and I had that idea also to make an episode where we talk about all the stuff that got away, like old EDC stuff that got away. And you're talking to the right people. Like I have 3 of a certain type of shoe. I have 4 of a certain type of shirt. I like stocking up on stuff that's high quality and really stuff that I like. And I dread the fact that if I have something I like and then they stop making it and I can't get it anymore and I want to replace the exact same thing. Oh my gosh, that's like a gear hoarder nightmare syndrome for me.
Right. Yeah. Well, that could be an exercise in letting go and being present, Mikey. Because not everything will last forever. But if people did want to stock up on the base knife, when is this going to be available, and what is the pricing like for them?
February 23rd is when it's going live on our website. Cool. And price wise, I really wanted to control the price. Like it was a passion project. It took me like 3 years to get this thing to completion. And I just really want to get it out there. So I'm doing a regular price of $225 US. And I always do this thing, Mikey might be familiar, like when I launch a new product, I always give a what I call launch pricing for the first weekend that I launch it, and that's kind of just like a way of saying thanks to close followers and early adopters of the new things, and just like after that, like the price is set, and we don't do sales or anything like that. Like it's extremely rare for us to discount anything after that, because we need that stability in the pricing. But yeah, so it's going to be a regular price of $225, but I'm actually launching it for $175, which I think for this like this material set is like
pretty sweet,
pretty much a steal, right? But that launch pricing only goes through the weekend. So what I was going to do for your viewers and listeners is to do an exclusive promo code for you guys.
Oh, awesome! Appreciate that.
Which will give them the same discount. Even though they're missing the launch weekend. So
thank you for accommodating our podcast schedule. We do appreciate.
Of course, no. Of course, it's a great opportunity to be on with you guys and to share this with your people, and definitely like don't want to leave them out just because of our schedules, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this kind of begs the question: now that you have your knife, your ideal knife, what's a pocket check like for you these days? What are you carrying in your pockets?
So I'm usually carrying a fountain pen. I've got like titanium fountain pens that we started doing. This was another thing I was chasing for a long time, and then finally just made my own. So got the knife, got the fountain pen. These days, I'm likely to have a set of MK Ultras and a set of Chetki. And Chetki is the one thing that is not titanium. I've gotten such a preference for the ebony wood Chetki. I love the clack. I love the feel. I love that it's a natural material. So like these 4 probably, and then plus like usually one other item. It might be a knuckle bone, might be something else. But I just for the purposes of like keeping my skills up in all of the disciplines, so to speak. I try to like rotate a little bit of I'll carry a dead eye sometimes, carry a knuckle bone sometimes, just so I to keep the skills sharp. Yeah.
Cool. And lastly, where can people find you and all of these wonderful products that you make? Do you have any socials you want to plug, or where can people find you?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so we're pretty much everywhere. On like Instagram is my main one at Around Square.
Hmm.
So Around Square with an A at the front, right?
Yeah.
And our website's aroundsquare.com. If you go to aroundsquare.com, we've got a community link, and that has like links to everything else. We've got a Discord server, we got a Facebook groups and so on. So whatever your pleasure, you can find us there. But
Thank
yeah,
you, Matt. So that just about wraps it up for today's episode. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. And if you did, please consider subscribing. If you're listening through a podcast service and you really enjoy what we do here, please consider leaving a review and a positive rating, as it would really help the podcast. You can follow us on social media. You can follow us on social media for more content daily on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all of that will be linked below. And if you want to be part of our EDC community, feel free to hop into our Facebook group or Discord server for more real-time discussion with other EDCers. Lastly, if you have any feedback or questions for us you want answered on the show, you can shoot us an email at podcast@everydaycarry.com. Thank you for listening to Carried Away. I'm Bernard.
I'm Mikey. And Matt, thank you for coming on and talking with
Thank you,
us.
Matt. And until the next one, peace.